Welcome to another episode of my channel, which has no name except for my name. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different than what I normally do. I'm not going to be ranking albums. I'm not going to be listing top 10 songs or anything of that nature. Instead, what I'm going to be doing is talking about two different albums. I'm going to call this series A Nice Pair, based upon the Pink Floyd compilation album of the same name, which features the first two albums, Piper at the Gates of Dawn and A Saucer Full of Secrets. So that's going to be, I'm taking the inspiration and calling this series A Nice Pair. So I'm going to be talking about two albums by Pink Floyd today. One is called Gumma, and it was made in 1969, and the other one called Atom Heart Mother, and it was made in 1970. So the first album that I'm going to be speaking of is the 1969 album Gumma. Now basically what this album was is a double album. After they had departed ways with Syd Barrett in 1968, they recorded a album based on, a movie. It was a soundtrack album for a movie called More, directed by Barbet Schroeder. After this, they decided to go into the studio and create another album. Their first idea was to create a live album based upon, or featuring rather, all their songs that they're playing, some of their songs that they played in their shows at the time. Instead, what they decided to do was they decided to create a double album featuring one side live tracks and the other side studio tracks. So what they did was they decided to take the live recordings that they had, put it on side one, or rather the first vinyl because it was a double album, and then create some different kind of music to put on the studio side. So we're going to be talking a little bit about the live album first. The live album features 4 songs, 3 of which were featured on previous albums. Astronomy Domine was featured on Piper at the Gates of Dawn, their debut album, and Saucer Full of Secrets and Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun was featured on the second album, A Saucer Full of Secrets. Now, the other song, the unique song of the 4, never came out on an album prior to 1970 when it came out, I think, on the Relics album compilation. But before then, it only came out as a B-side, and it was a very kind of jaunty, dinky version of the song called Careful With That Axe, Eugene. Now, the difference is these live versions of the songs are basically very extended expansions, like expanded versions of the studio tracks. So you have Astronomy Domine, which was Syd Barrett song on the first album, and David Gilmour singing it for the updated version here on the live version, because Syd Barrett was no longer with the band at that time. So it's a very extended version of Astronomy Domine, just like all the other versions of the songs are very extended versions, very kind of drawn out, long, atmospheric, very eerie sounding. It's a very dark sounding live album, but it is a mind-blowing experience. It is my favorite part of Gumma. Now, the studio side takes a lot of slack, gets a lot of slack. I will get it right soon. Takes a lot of flack from people. It is late at night and I'm tired, so you'll just have to bear with me. But what they did was each member of the band decided to create their own songs. So the first song was Rick Wright's Sisyphus. Now Sisyphus was the Greek myth of the man who basically has to roll the stone up the hill and only for it to roll back down forever and ever and ever. So he created this song, and it starts out very bombastic. It almost sounds like someone's going to war, symphonic. I think he uses the mellotron in it. So it starts out very just almost like a classical music piece that was maybe something from Holst or Bartok or something. Just it's very strange, but it's bombastic. And then it goes into this sort of beautiful piano piece that disintegrates, almost like, you know, someone's mind going. And then part 3 of the Sisyphus track goes into this sort of what I describe as scraps falling out of the back of a truck or something. It's not one of my favorite parts of the song. The 4th part is very unsettling. It's like an unsettling lull where it almost reminds me of something that would the intro to Tales from the Dark Side, the old show in the 80s. It almost reminds me of something like that, because it just kind of lulls you into this, you're walking through a field, and it's just kind of hazy and weird outside, and then suddenly Rick Wright hits these chords on an organ, and just, you know, it just startles you completely. You're not expecting it. As a matter of fact, I was listening to it one night while I was asleep, and it just completely scared the crap out of me. Then the next song coming up is actually 2 songs and by Roger Waters. The first one is Several Species of Small Furry Animals Gathered Together in a Cave and Grooving with a Pick. I think that's the first one. Let's see. No, Grantchester Meadows is the first one. Grantchester Meadows is basically a pastoral piece, very light acoustic guitar with Roger Waters singing about Grantchester Meadows, which is a place in England. And it's just a very calming song, probably the calmest, most comfortable type songs on the album, because this album is very dark. The next piece is also by Roger Waters, called Several Species of Small Furry Animals Gathered Together in a Cave and Grooving with a Pick. And basically what this is a sort of sound collage of loops that Roger Waters put together. It's a very weird, strange, just total bizarro type thing. It's not, I don't even qualify it as a song. It's just sort of a sound collage. Then you get to David Gilmour. Let me make sure. Yeah, David Gilmour's song is called The Narrow Way, and it's divided into 3 parts. And the first part is a very acoustic, it's beautiful, but it's kind of unsettling. But it's a extremely mellow kind of sound. And then it just sort of, it almost disintegrates like part 2 of Sisyphus. It disintegrates into this very dark electric guitar where it's just like dun 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 dun, just a very dark sound. And then after that, it kind of goes into what I would describe as a more of a typical Pink Floyd song. It actually has lyrics and David Gilmour singing and David Gilmour, you know, lead guitar part. And so it's about the closest you're going to get to the Pink Floyd sound from this side of the album. And then the final track is called The Grand Vizier's Garden Party, and it was Nick Mason's offering. His wife, Lindy Mason, plays I believe it's the recorder for part 1 and part 2, which is basically, that's all it is just her playing the recorder. And the second part, the middle part, is where Nick Mason basically has what I would consider to be a percussion solo, like a percussion symphony or some sort. He's playing all kinds of little strange sounds. It's like a sound collage basically for percussion. A lot of people put this track down. I quite enjoy it, actually. If you've ever listened to the entire album together with the movie Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. Just turn the volume down and put Ummagumma on. It's a very strange experience, but it goes together. It's unbelievable, actually. Okay, so on to Atom Heart Mother. This is one of my favorite Pink Floyd albums. As a matter of fact, I think in my album ranking video, I ranked it number 4. But it starts out with, basically, I'll go ahead and describe it for you. It was created in 1970, and one side of the album, the first side of the album, is just one long song. It's called the Atom Heart Mother Suite. And it's not the same thing over and over and over. It's a suite. It's divided into sections. It uses symphonic orchestration, like a choir. It has the band, of course, jamming in it. It's like a complete journey, and I call it an epic masterpiece, basically. But what they did was they got a very avant-garde composer by the name of Ron Geeson, and they worked with him on this track. They laid down the basics of the song, and then Ron Geeson came over and added orchestration, choir, and some sound effects and just weird stuff to it. And it's a very strange piece of music, but I love it. It's one of my favorite songs of all time, and it is definitely the masterpiece on this album. The second side features songs by the band members again. It starts out with If by Roger Waters, which is almost just like Grantchester Meadows. It's a very pastoral, very acoustic, mellow song, very reflective. I don't get much from it, but I don't dislike it. The next one is called Summer 68, and it's by Rick Wright, and it kind of takes you back to the psychedelic period of Pink Floyd, back in 68 or 67. If you've heard any of Rick Wright's music from the Saucer Full of Secrets album, it kind of sounds like that. It takes you back a little bit to that psychedelic sound. There's a lot of change-ups in the song, and it's very psychedelic. The next one is called Fat Old Sun. It's David Gilmour's offering, and it's a very mellow song, and I think the band said it was almost like a sequel to Grantchester Meadows from Ummagumma. It's David Gilmour's reflection of the area that he lived in and growing up, and it's a very mellow piece, beautiful acoustic guitar. David Gilmour has a falsetto voice in it until the lead guitar solo, and then it kicks in, and it's a really rocking guitar solo song. It is one of my favorite songs as well. And then it ends with Alan's Psychedelic Breakfast, which I guess is called Musique Concrete, as they say. It is basically a sound collage of their roadie Alan Stiles making breakfast and talking about his breakfast and what he's eating, and you hear all kinds of sound effects from pouring milk in cereal and cooking bacon and eggs and things of that nature, and him talking about marmalade, he likes marmalade, he likes marmalade, things of that nature. And then and there's some noodling, guitar noodling through the song and things of that nature. But the third part of the song, Morning Glory, is when it really kicks in and the band plays sort of a jam at the end of it. And the original vinyl had a rut inside the record itself that would just, at the end of it, you can hear a sink dripping. And so the way the original vinyl was, it would just go on and on and on and on till you took it off. So it would just go into infinity. But that was Atom Heart Mother, and that is one of my favorite albums as well. So I would recommend that you check out both Atom Heart Mother and Ummagumma. These are two very avant-garde, very strange experimental albums by Pink Floyd, 1969 and 1970. And so I highly recommend those albums. And if you'll just like and subscribe if you liked this video, and if you like all my videos, if you'll subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to build my channel up, and so You know, every little like and every little view and every little subscription really does help. So thank you guys, and I really hope you enjoyed the video. Now go subscribe.